Yan Liang joins me now from Portland, Oregon. She's an economics professor at Willamette University. Always great to see you.
Good to talk to you, Elaine.
In your opinion, would ending the tariffs help inflation in the U.S.? And how would that happen? How soon would we see any changes if that were to take place?
Right. So I think according to some very reliable, credible research, according to, for example, the Peterson Institute of International Economics, by just getting rid of the tariff war, the added tariffs on about $330 billion of Chinese imports alone would already reduce inflation by about 1.3 percentage points. And so that it's not insignificant given the current high inflation rate of 8.3%. So this, I think, would immediately be reflected in the imports coming from China, and for especially U.S. households that are relatively low income that rely on these relatively inexpensive Chinese imports. And so as a reporter talked about, this could have saved U.S. households on average over $1,000 a year.
And do you think there would be any wider economic impacts beyond the U.S. and China, helping other countries economically as well? I mean, other countries are hurting too.
Yes, absolutely. I think, a normalization of the U.S.-China trade relationships will not only help China or the U.S., but also, the global supply chain is a very complex network. So there's many countries that contributed to, ingredients, raw materials, energies, you name it. All of these would then be affected by, the reduced cost of the U.S. imports, the increase in China's export productions, and also, I think, better, economic cooperation between the two countries.
And looking ahead, we've heard the word recession thrown about a bit. Would a global recession, what would that mean to the trade war? Could it force faster action to end the tariffs? Is that something that the U.S. president should really take into account?
Right. I think U.S. policymakers are now still in a stage of, I think, overconfidence and placency about the U.S.'s ability to avoid a U.S. recession. I think there's a lot of talking about, we could just raise the interest rates, by the end of this year would be about 2.7%. And that would help to, somehow engineer a cool, soft landing of the economy and yet fight inflation. And I think that increasingly we have seen evidence that is very concerning how that soft landing may not materialize. And so I think it's really important, as we're now still in a very fragile economic recovery, in the United States and in China, the economy is actually, going downward because of the COVID restrictions and so on. I think it really takes a lot more efforts for both countries to coordinate their policies to really try their best to stabilize the prices and also to try to engineer the economic recovery. And that, again, is not only good for both countries, but also, for the global economy, as we see many countries are suffering from high energy and food prices, especially in the developing nations.